We have our first question here from Jay Anderson of Cage Side Press. Jay.
I want to go back to the lone loss of your career against Zebaztian Kadestam. What did you learn from that experience? And do you see a path back to another title shot if you pick up a second straight win later this week?
Yeah, so that was a pretty interesting fight for me. I think that was like my 18th fight to that point, and I'd fought one way for those 18 fights, and the answer was always more horsepower, work harder than them, that old adage. But in a 5-round fight, you need to be a little bit more of a tactician. And then as I quickly found out, and starting to get into the later rounds, all the horsepower that I had put forth in the first few rounds, it did play a role. I wasn't like gassed or anything, but I definitely probably would have approached it a little bit differently. And I also, spent the time off, working on just being more efficient. Because sometimes it wasn't necessarily, I spend more time just working the same thing and being stubborn and like I'm going to get this and they'll break, and then came to find out that Zebaztian didn't break. So I worked on that's the biggest thing is just trying to be more efficient and a little bit more of a tactician. Especially for a 5-round fight.
Here you are getting ready to compete in front of a U.S. audience, U.S. prime time, and I imagine that's not something you expected when you first started with one. So what's that feeling like?
It's amazing. One does a fantastic job with their promotion. When I would come back and tell the people, the behind the scenes things and being at the actual shows, I think that all their shows are top notch. And then, and I think it's a great opportunity for the American audience to be exposed to the different rule set, as far as like knees on the ground. And you have to defend yourself at all times. There's no resting position just because you have a hand on the ground. So, that's a big deal. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of eyes on it because, sharing the card in the evening with Eddie Alvarez and DJ, and those big fights as well. So it's an amazing opportunity, right? And that's why I want to put the best version of myself forward, so then people can start, wanting to follow me as well.
Thank you, Jay. Next question here from Leon Jennings of Asian Persuasion MMA. Leon.
Hey, so I spoke to you the other day and you mentioned you got food poisoning a few days out last time you competed against Lantani. Are you being extra careful what you eat this time around then?
I am. There's, I always pride myself on kind of having an iron gut, especially being in the military. Sometimes we're eating MREs or whatever, but it turns out that, I'm not immune to food poisoning. So yeah, what you guys saw last, when I was in that cage was probably me at like 75, 80%. So no, I'm at full strength now. So I'm feeling pretty good. So. But yes, I'm much more strict with what I've been eating. So,
Tyler, I understand you are still serving the Air Force full time. Tell us about that and juggling both work and training for this upcoming bout.
First and foremost, it has to do with my amazing support system from my wife and daughter at home, to my leadership in the Air Force. When I'm in camp, I'm working 17 and a half, 18-hour days, and then I go. Obviously, my wife kind of takes the leadership role as far as taking care of my daughter, and then the Air Force provides me with time that I need for my strength and conditioning. And then I've got a great support system at Apex MMA with all my teammates there. I've got a group of guys that are always there for me. They always show up, and then we always get after it, right? So I would say like that's the biggest thing. That and just plain mental toughness. Camp is a grind. It's a grind for anybody, but then when you're serving in the Air Force as well, because there's a standard you have to meet, and then there's and I have people that are counting on me to maintain that standard. So, there's a lot of pressure there to do both. But again, due to my great support system, that's how I've been able to do it.
We have a question here from Jude Brioses of Overtime Heroics MMA.
How do you feel about fighting in your home soil and presenting or showcasing one championship? What is the biggest takeaway that you can give to the audience to hook them to follow the promotion, one championship?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's going to be the rule set and the different disciplines that they'll see, because on any given card for one championship, you can have Muay Thai, kickboxing, you can have, we just signed Gordon Ryan, right? So there's going to be some submission or grappling bouts as well, obviously, along with the MMA. And then also the, as I said earlier, the different rule set, right? Like you can't rest in the fight, right? Like, because you're down, you can still take a knee to the head. Obviously, they've eliminated things like soccer kicks and things like that, but you still have to defend yourself at all times. And you've seen some of the controversy in other promotions where disqualifications and things like that, but you're not going to have that in one. It's you better put out, or you'll be put out.
Tyler, your only one loss in one championship is against a former champion, Zebaztian Kadestam. What have you learned from that fight? And what have you worked on since your last bout against Aguilantani?
So yeah, the biggest thing that I learned against Zebaztian was, again, being a tactician, and that horsepower isn't necessarily always the answer. And understanding kind of how to manage your energy. Fighting a 3-round fight is so much different than fighting a 5-round fight. So I don't have to change a lot of as far as my strategy for a 3-rounder, but if I am going to challenge for the world title again, there are some things that I learned because that being my first 5-round fight ever. There was just a lot of learning taking place. And as far as what I've worked on with Aguilan, really there's a lot of things I wanted to showcase that I really didn't get to with the food poisoning, and then just things like I didn't get a proper warm up, and I really wasn't warmed up till the 3rd round against Aguilan. So just all these COVID protocols, and they're just making things, that just makes things, adds a layer of difficulty. So I don't envy all the red tape and stuff that one has to cut through to put this on. They're doing an amazing job. But yeah, so that's the biggest thing, is just working on being more technical, right, and then being more efficient. I think that's going to be the biggest answer to this title run.
Question here from Simon Romero of Behind the Grid.
So I just want to know, from people who maybe aren't too aware of the skills that you bring to the table, what is something you would like them to know specifically about you for fight night?
I would say it's always pressing. If you look at any of my fights, I'm always pressing the action, right? I don't rest a whole lot, right? So I think that tenacity and the fact that I always want my hands on him, like, it's not like I'm not out there trying to point fight. I mean, I treat it like a fight. So I think that's the difference. Not that results in more clinching and grabbing them, but at the same time, like, I'm looking to throw bombs and to finish it, right? So and if that bomb ends up with a takedown or a clinch, so be it. But if I'm going to get into a fight, like, I'm not going to be an easy out. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is that anytime I show up to the cage, it's going to be a fight.
And my last one for you here, in your opinion, do you feel that your opponent you have ahead of you just maybe your toughest fight yet?
I would say, as far as maybe the most diverse skill set, Zebaztian was pretty good. I think that, if you look at my strength of schedule, I fought pretty much the cream of the crop for one championship. Everybody that I fought has either had the title or fought for the title. I got introduced to one fighting Sapo he had like 38 knockouts. So I would say I'm more comfortable for this fight. But at the same time, I know that he's young, he's hungry, he's from Dagestan, which, you pick a guy on the street with a beard in Dagestan, he's going to be tough, right? So I just expect this is going to be a war.
Next question from Dylan Bowker of My MMA News.
I was just kind of curious about your thoughts heading into this match, just because it seems like with this division in particular, there's maybe more of a nebulous kind of contendership hierarchy. Has one championship communicated to you, like, if this is the title eliminator bout for Abasov's belt, or has nothing been specified in that regard, or in a broader sense where the winner gets in the contendership hierarchy in general?
They haven't said anything to me directly. I've been told in the past that before I fought Aguilan that I was 1 or 2 away from being considered for the title shot. But if you look at some of the social media things that one is posting, it's saying, that this is potentially the bout. I don't really know who else would be ahead of me, especially if I get a win. I know there's some young and up and comers that have 1 or 2 wins that have looked really impressive, but I think if just with pure strength of schedule, and if you look at MMA math, right, like, who has a win over Abasov? Luis Sapo Santos, right? I beat Sapo, right? And then obviously Abasov beat Zebaztian, and Zebaztian obviously beat me. So I think that me getting a shot at the title would actually be a nice way to look at that MMA math and see how that works.
Tyler, your opponent, Raimond Magomedaliev, trains in the same club as Khabib Nurmagomedov. Are you worried at all stepping into this bout? No,
because it's Raymond. It's not Khabib or Khabib. That's like, as far as like who you train with and all that. I mean, in the end, like, I've said for a long time that, if you lose, it's on you. If you win, it's because your team that helped you get there. But, it's not like, I don't really think about who they're training with or whatever. I mean, I could talk about, some of the guys that I train with, either the people, at Apex MMA, or I just had UFC welterweight Michael Chiesa come down and train with me. So like, we can, measure sticks on as far as like who we're training with, but in the end, it's the guy across from me has 2 legs, 2 arms, and he needs air to breathe. So it doesn't really matter who he trains with.
We have a question here from Peter Atencio of Manila Standard.
As far how far do you think you are from earning a world title opportunity, and how many more wins do you need to get there?
To my understanding, I mean, no one's told me anything directly, but I don't know who else would be the clear-cut favorite. I know that they really like Raymond. I know he lost a close one to Nakashima, who is also a world title challenger. So if you look at my strength of schedule, I think I'm the clear-cut number one contender with the win on Wednesday.
Tyler, has the pandemic affected your training or any of your lifestyle?
As far as like the lifestyle, not really. I don't really go out and do much. And in the military, being on base, we're kind of in a bubble anyway. And then, some of the things I do for fun, like with my family, I take them out. We have a little off-roading vehicle. So we go out in the middle of the Arizona desert and ride around. So like we're socially distancing anyway. So that's really been that hasn't really affected me a whole lot. I don't go out to the bars. I don't really do any of those things in close contact. There's been some things we've had to put off, like, taking our daughter to Disneyland or something like that. But for the most part, not from a personal standpoint, not really, because like my social life is the gym, right? And then through like some of the protocols, like especially for camps, I train with the same guys all the time. So we kind of put ourselves in a bubble, and that enabled us to get a good training camp. And as far as like my strength and conditioning on base, again, I would work out when other people weren't around so that I could get those the high intensity workouts and things that you need to do. But also mitigating, the risk of COVID transmission.
We have a question here from Nit Akin of South China Morning Post.
Just wanted to get your thoughts on potentially seeing Abasov go up and challenge René de Ridder for the middleweight belt. Did you think that's a good fight to make? Would it hold up the welterweight division? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, good for Abasov. As athletes, we have a limited window to make a living and to make an impact and to build your legacy. So if that's something he wants to go do, I think that's a fantastic opportunity for him. But at the same time, to your point about holding a division, I think that's the biggest limiting factor. When you go for those champ things that you're kind of holding up, and if he were to win, he'd be doing welterweight and then welterweight, middleweight. So there's actually like in every other fight he would be doing for the welterweight. So it actually slow things down. So that's really the biggest limb fact. But I mean, yeah, if an athlete thinks that they can do that, by all means, go for it, right? I mean, dare to be great. So,
and if you're still with Sick Jitsu, and then also we've got another asking if you brought in any new training partners to emulate your opponent here.
I do train out of Tucson, Arizona now with the military. That's where they moved me. So I train with Apex MMA primarily. However, the head coach Rick Little from Sick Jitsu did come down for part of my camp, so I'm still affiliated with him. Talk to him every day. And then Michael Chiesa came down, the number 7 ranked UFC welterweight, and he trained with me. But I've had some bodies. I mean, and we understand, kind of what Raymond likes to do. So yeah, we've been emulating that. To the best of our ability. But we'll see what happens.
Dylan Bowker from MMA News with the next one.
Now, Tyler, I just had a question in regards to just the comeback trail between the last couple of fights here, because I'm noticing there's the 2-year gap between the bouts. I imagine some of that is also informed by the pandemic and some of the hurdles that created. But what was it like to not only get back after being out of competition for a couple of years, but also to compete in a framework whereby there was no fans in attendance?
It was a little weird. The last time I fought, I was in front of a stadium filled with 20,000 fans, and they're going crazy, and it was a title fight and the atmosphere. But I think as any fighter will tell you that the first loss is always the toughest, right? And then it was even tougher because I knew going into that fight. So the military had been very supportive of me, and they allowed me to kind of put off some training that I had to do. And it was block training, so I couldn't really like break it up. So I knew going into that fight, I was going to have about a 10-month layoff. So, taking that first L and then having to wait 10 months, what I thought was going to be 10 months, to get it back. And then obviously I was trying to fight in like March, February of 2020. And then obviously the worldwide pandemic hit. So then had to wait, another, and then our gyms were shut down, and, that the whole mess of all that. So, I would say vindication, the fact that, I still got it, if you will, because obviously Aguilan's one of the top ranked welterweights as well. I mean, we both knew that, he was trying to get back into title contention, and really just going into that fight, my opponent got changed like 3 times, and my camp got extended a month. And there was just, that was the most adversity filled camp in fight week really that I've ever had in my career with pushing things back, 3 different opponents, food poisoning. And that just really showed me that, I can just push through anything. So, and that's kind of reinvigorated me to show that I do still belong here. So
yeah, and just as a quick follow-up, just with like that broader timeline you're talking about there, was there any point where frustration was settling in with the myriad of roadblocks that were popping up, or did there a certain composure set in from that kind of military mindset you've been talking about through the scrum here today?
There was a deal of frustration, but to your point, the composure is what carried me through. Like discipline is obviously a strong part of being in the military. And I got to the point, especially with my fight got pushed back twice and my camp was extended, and I'm working 17, 18 hours a day. I'm not seeing my family. There was a point where I wasn't even sure if I was going to, by the time I got to my third opponent, I wasn't even sure if I was still going to fight. I was just so frustrated and I was hurt on my elbows and like my joints, because, being 35 now, 34 at the time, going through that 3-month camp with the rigors of that, like, that wears on you, right? And then mentally again with the family thing. But luckily, I've got, again, back to that great support system. My strength coach, my physical therapy coach, my teammates, they were there for me and on those lower points, along with my wife, and then the military as well. So, but yeah, that composure is what just kept me through. And I know what the other thing is, I wanted to show my daughter, I took my first loss as a professional. You lose that aura of invincibility, but I wanted to come back and get back on the horse and get that win again. So one day when I talk to my daughter, I'm trying to encourage her to do whatever she wants to do. And when she experiences failure, that I have something to draw on as an example. So
Next question from Ivan Stewart of Dugout Philippines.
Who do you have winning between DJ and Adriano, and why?
Man, that's a tough one. I got to go with the GOAT, DJ. I've seen him perform in these pressure cooker situations. Even if you look at when he lost to Cejudo before the famous trade, I think that could have gone DJ's way. I think his last real loss was against Dominic Cruz, right? And at 135. Excuse me. So, I just think he brings too much to the table. The guy's one of the most humble people you'll ever meet in your life. What you guys see on TV is real. He's got an amazing support system. He's got an amazing coach over there with Matt Hume. So I think they're going to come prepared. He's got world-class training partners, and we're going to see why he's the GOAT. And that's not sending hate, the other way, but it's just, DJ's my guy.
All right, just a quick follow-up. Although the hype is on the DJ Adriano fight, do you think your fight against Raymond will have what it takes to steal the show on Thursday? I do. This. I'm getting towards the end of my contract with one. So obviously this is kind of a, I want to show them why that they would want to re-sign me. Obviously, being a big push in the United States. Obviously, I want people to want to watch one. Right, being a company man, right? So, and that's the big thing. I want to show them the diverse rule set, the diverse skill set, and just show them that, that one brings a lot of talent to the table, and that, by them tuning in, they will be entertained.
Tyler, talk about your opponent a little bit. Is there any glaring weaknesses that you see in his game?
At this level, it's really tough to find, weaknesses, right? You have guys that have tendencies, it's no secret that, I tend to, look for the takedown with my striking, and obviously it's no secret that he likes distance, right? But if you see what Nakashima did, and then any success you're seeing with other fighters, that's anybody who likes that kickbox Muay Thai thing. They don't really like to be to be pressured, right? That's not to say he can't handle it. And I haven't really seen a whole lot of his ground game, so I don't know. I'm going to go wherever the fight takes it, and then that's we'll see when we get in there. But I would say the thing I've seen the least of is his ground game. But he's a Sambo world champ, so obviously he does have experience and he is very capable.
Thank you, Tyler. We have a question here from Robert Bellin of Fight Game Asia.
Just a quick one, Tyler. We all know that you are an ambassador. You think, or why is the fight for artism so close to your heart?
Just a little bit about me. Prior to joining the military, I was a special education teacher. I started one of the first programs serving students with autism in a middle school setting in the state of Iowa in the United States. And then as I was doing that, I also took up amateur fighting. My then girlfriend, now wife, her cousin fought professionally, and I thought, well, that's something I want to put on the bucket list and just say that I did. And then when I started fighting, one of my students' parents gave me an Autistic Kids Rock shirt, and that's really kind of where that all took off. So spending the time and seeing the impacts and seeing what just a simple t-shirt and just talking about it can do for the community, both for, the kids and also the family members, right? Some people get so wrapped up around the diagnosis of autism that they forget that these are just kids, right? And we're seeing the same thing with other issues, like Down syndrome, right? Like it's not a death sentence, right? It's just a different path, right? And that's the biggest thing that myself and the Fight for Autism is trying to do. What's nice about Fight for Autism is that they offer kids on the autism spectrum the ability to compete in combat sports and fitness and things like that as an outlet, just like any other kid.
What do you think about the Arjan Bular versus Brandon Vera fight? For you, what do you think will win and why?
Wait, say it again. Sorry, you cut out.
Sorry. All right. What do you think about the Arjan Bular versus Brandon Vera fight? Who do you think will win and why?
Man, that's well, obviously Brandon Vera is a killer. And I never want to root against him. That's tough. I'm gonna have to go with Vera.
Tyler, we're gonna move into some rapid fire questions. Whatever comes to your mind first. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Speed.
Stuck on an island, you can only eat one fruit for the rest of your life. What fruit are you picking?
Banana. Yep. I'm not buying time, I promise.
Favorite country you've been to?
Singapore.
Who's the nicest one athlete you have ever met?
Mighty Mouse. Aguilon. Mighty Mouse and Aguilon. Sorry, I'm gonna go with Aguilon. He gave me the shirt off his back. Aguilon's on the card. So
one ice cream flavor for the rest of your life. What are you going with?
Chocolate. I'm a simple man.
If you were to go into a medieval battle, what weapon would you choose?
Do I get crossbow? Does that count?
Counts.
All right.
One last one. What's your favorite food?
Pizza. Oh, pizza. I'm a pizza-holic. Love it.
What's one of your all-time favorite movies?
Cinderella Man.
Eddie Alvarez said the same thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Tyler. All the best this April 7th.
All right. Thank you, sir.